Hack RedCon podcast continuing. Our next guest, Joe. Welcome to the chair. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Joe Pace. I've been a part of going to Hack RedCon for 3 years now. So I missed the first year, right?
Well, unfortunately, that's enough. You missed the first year. You got to go. I'm kidding. Continue.
And I've been in the cybersecurity field off and on for a little over 10 years of experience. So 4 years first time, and then stepped out for a little bit just to kind of go back to network management and things like that. And then I've been back in the field for another 6. That
is a very unique path. I've been in the industry for going on 30 years. I've only been on the, I don't consider myself a white hat. I'm more of a taupe hat. Not necessarily completely white, but not gray either. I just kind of do my own thing. And the idea of stepping away from cyber for any period of time, that has to really be difficult to come back into with the speed of exploits and how the industry itself has moved. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that story?
Yeah. So my story's actually even more unique to my start in cybersecurity. So we'll start there. My start in cybersecurity began with being more on the adversary side.
I was a straight up black hat for most of my life.
Yeah, I was more like what you would call a script kiddie at the time. I had no skill set, but I was willing to do any physical attacks as well.
So more lock picking.
Well, it started really when I was a kid, probably around 12 or 13. And I'm only 32 now, but at 12 and 13.
I remember 32. Those were good years. Continue.
At 12 and 13, I would break into people's houses, and I knew where their password lists were from the neighborhood, and I would steal their lists of passwords.
That is one of the coolest exploits I've ever heard. I got your password. What did you use? A 0-day? Were you using some kind of malware? No, I used your front door.
Yeah, your window was left unlocked most of the time. And so I would take accounts, specifically video gaming accounts. At that time, RuneScape was big, right? Still kind of is. And take those accounts and then recycle them and sell them at school.
I can't really say I did much different, but it was a lot different in terms of the technology because you're 33, I'm 50. But, I did similar things when I was in a technical course in high school. I found that this was before anybody really knew the concepts of like security on directories. Mm-hmm. The computer-aided drafting program I was in, the teacher had put all of our assignments in one folder and just put hidden on it. Needless to say, I sold those exams and I made a pretty good side hustle my senior year. But I love the ingenuity and the entrepreneurship that you showed at a young age.
Yeah, it made me a good amount of money. We grew up in an area that wasn't extremely poor, but my family was probably the poorest in the area. And then shoes were really important. And so, you get picked on if you had bad shoes. I don't have great shoes on today, but you'd get picked on if you had bad shoes. So I always wanted to buy nice Jordans at the time. And
we came from different places, man. I grew up on the west side of Detroit. You couldn't have nice shoes or else somebody else would have your shoes.
Yeah, for sure. So it made me money, but it also made me a great deal of, I wouldn't say haters, more like enemies. They had the right.
It will definitely create an emotional response in people when you start doing things like this. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I had a good amount of fistfights over accounts and things like that. And we kind of calmed down, but we were doing stuff like that and some social engineering at the time, catfishing people for money and things like that. Yeah,
being a normal teen prior to the over regulation that children have to deal with today.
Yeah.
In a way, I feel really bad for the kids today because, we got away with so much stuff when we were younger. And I'm not saying it was good and I'm not saying it was legal, but, there used to be the expression of let a kid be a kid. Yeah, we can't do that anymore.
Well, there's a problem with that is that when you start to look at risk, right? So cybersecurity is all about risk.
Absolutely.
And if we're looking at the risk to today's youth, because of the access to internet and the access to things like that, the risk of them not only being caught, but being exploited in other ways is so high that regulators decide that they need to do something about it. And I'm not saying I necessarily disagree with it sometimes.
Well, before we go down this, because this is actually going to be a lot of the conversation, I do want to circle back to one point. We were talking about how you got in and then you left cyber for a little while and came back. So before we start going down, because we are going to talk about the threats to the youth quite a bit here, but I want to finish up that first part of that story first.
Yeah.
You left dealing in cyber for how long?
It was just a couple of years, 2 or 3 years.
Okay.
I just took a step down, help desk, network.
Yeah. But let's be honest, 2 to 3 years in cybersecurity is essentially 10 to 20 years in most other industries. So how difficult was it, in terms of transitioning back?
Sure. So it starts with my step away. So the step away was for mental health reasons and things like that. I was going through a divorce.
I'm sorry for that.
And we'll talk a little bit more about that. I had, and the reasons of me going more blue team, but going through the divorce and dealing with how do you pay bills and things like that. And I had lost a cybersecurity job, and I was having really bad imposter syndrome.
A lot of us in this industry suffer from that.
Now, I did get a job offer quickly to help be a network install tech at a small company locally here. And when I was doing that work, I used that to build on, some of my strengths and some of my knowledge, and really just kind of get used to everything. But the climb back into cybersecurity, I actually even took a step farther down in the network side and instead went to the help desk at a local MSP.
That's, in my opinion, that's actually a really smart move. When you're working in a single company, you're only going to deal with that company's issues. And dealing with an MSP, you're going to have to learn a lot. I've always equated to working at an MSP as basically to drinking from the fire hose as far as your skill sets and what you're going to be required to figure out how to do.
Yeah, I agree. You'll have so many different customers that have different environments, and just the way you're going to handle each one of them is different. Also, a little inside knowledge is most MSP customers don't want to spend additional money.
Oh, no, that's not just MSP. That's just any customer, period. They don't want to spend money.
Yeah.
But, you were able to transition back over, and that is absolutely astonishing to me. I mean, I've seen a lot of people who have tried to do what you've done, and they find it very, very difficult. And I'm really impressed by the fact that you were able to make the transition back. I wonder in some ways if it actually gave you a bit of an advantage not having to deal with all the intermediate stuff and just making a clean break and then coming back.
Yeah, that might have been it. I think part of it is that I just needed that cool down period. So there was a lot I was dealing with mental health wise and spiritually at that time. And we're free to talk about that as well. Well,
we only have a certain amount of time. So if you'd like, we could definitely pick this up on, I'm one of the hosts of the Cyber Cognition podcast through the Cyber Circus Network. But for today, I respect your story and I'd love to get it. We're just going to have to do that at a different time because we're limited on time.
Okay.
One of the things I wanted to bring up was the threat to children, and we talked a little bit about that before the interview started. And one of the things that I've been talking about in my research for quite a while is the differences between when I grew up as a child and the children today. Today's kids, their entire life, the internet's been here. And additionally, the youth of today are now dealing with AI, deepfake. Personally, for me, I have daughters who have children now, and the idea of what they're going to go through growing up compared to my growing up, it terrifies the hell out of me.
Yeah, for me too. So I have daughters as well. And they're a big push for my journey into speaking out and trying to get a call to action on cybersecurity for children, because that education just really isn't there in a way that's digestible for a kid or even a mother or father who isn't in the field to understand.
There's a lot of regulations that are being tossed around right now in different states in terms of limiting access to social media for children until they're 18. How do you feel about what that particular legislation, and what do you think should be done?
Yeah, so I find it interesting. I was an early adopter to Facebook, right? A lot of people in my generation were, but I'll point it like this: locally here, we have a baseball stadium, and for Family Fun Night, the sponsor of Family Fun Night is Snapchat. Does that sound like it's a good thing?
No, but if we're going to talk about the threats to children from technology, we have to also really take into consideration the advent of artificial intelligence, large language models, and how that is being integrated into society. There are some schools out there right now who, and I know this is a little bit of a diversion from the original topic, but I think it's relevant. How does LLM play into scholastics? And the two trains of thought are you can't use it at all, or we're now seeing some schools are like, you can use ChatGPT or an LLM, but you have to give us the prompt that you used, and they're going to judge you on the prompt as opposed to the end result. How do we reconcile these kinds of technologies, especially the way they're being integrated? They're going to be if we limit the access until they're 18, doesn't that actually stunt them at the point where we're expecting them to be productive members of society?
Yes, it's about balance, just like everything else in cybersecurity. When you're looking at things from a holistic view, a lot of times cybersecurity vendors and things like that, or we'll talk about LLM producers, right? They're missing some of the balance to privacy is typically the one that they always take away from before adding accessibility. And so right now for LLMs, we're at the all-you-can-eat stage of the accessibility is cranked all the way up, but privacy and actual ethical use is kind of lacking. And so we as professionals need to figure out what the boundaries are and how we can set a boundary that's acceptable for everyone.
And there is the problem. We've always, in security, we always say there's not one silver bullet for security. Security is a team sport, and each situation needs to be addressed individually. For me, I think it's a very slippery slope, and to that in terms of regulations. We can use driver's licenses as an analogy. We don't let just anyone drive. You have to be a certain age, but how do we decide what that age is?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when it comes to LLMs, especially anything that produces images or explicit material, those things should be regulated just the same way as pornography.
I agree. And the fact that it's not actually already, by default put under that type of, categorization is very confusing to me. And I think it has to do with the fact that it's not a explicit website, but it has the ability to create it based on the user's, input. So how do we're back to the initial question, and I'm not trying to, trip you up here, because this is actually a discussion I've had with a lot of people many times, is how do we as a society say this is good for everyone, like you just said, because there are going to be differences, and with the technology integration, there's this positive and negative that continues to alternate based on the use case.
Yes, so it's about putting the right people in the right places. So having cybersecurity people among legislators.
Well, that would be nice. Maybe we could actually get the government to actually, update their computers from XP.
Yes. So I actually am currently working on an affiliate program with Raven. And they've recently helped pass some anti-AI pornography laws and things like that.
So tell me a little bit about Raven. How can people find out more about it?
Yeah, so you can find out about Raven on LinkedIn or Raven's website.
Do you know the URL?
I don't, actually.
That's all right. We'll find it. We'll put it in the notes underneath the video. But, definitely something to check out. So as far as what's coming up for you, any events coming up, anything that you'd like to kind of throw out there?
Well, a little exciting. 2 days ago, I passed my CISSP.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so I guess I'm doing okay.
That's awesome.
And then I'm looking forward to speaking here in Louisville at the ISSA conference. I'm going to submit my paper on securing our children in the cyberspace.
And do you have the date on that?
So that'll be in September. I believe it's September 18th. But
Double check the date, but look around in September. Thank you, Joe. So now we're going to move into the fun part of this interview.
Sure.
So we are doing something today called Whiskey and War Stories. And what we would like to do is have you tell us a little war story from your career. Something can be social engineering related, could be hacking related. Just tell us a little story, something that jumps out in your head in terms of a story that you had to deal with during the course of your career.
I've had a couple interesting ones. I think the one that jumps out in my head, it's a little longer than the other ones. I had a client that had set up Microsoft Flow, and they were using the domain tenant account, the main account, to run this flow. And it basically did everything for them. It allowed them to scan and print and all of the things. And I honestly had no clue. Our whole team in the SOC was in the SOC meeting, but like a good SOC, we kept one person. And today was my day.
Yay!
The problem with that is while sitting in there, I get a really high level alert on our SIEM to pop up saying that the main account is logged in Belarus.
Uh-oh. Houston, we have a problem.
Working, in the SOC alone while everyone else is in a meeting and, they don't want to be disturbed, and I see which account it is, I make an executive decision. I'm notifying no one yet, and we're going to secure the account.
Oh boy.
I secure the account and notify people. The problem is that Microsoft Flow existed.
Uh-oh.
And so during my securing of the account, reset, clear credentials, clear all of the access, all the MFA, everything, just blow it right out.
And the second and third level collateral damage from this action was?
Everything and all of their printers was down.
Oh.
Everything. There's nothing in the company that worked.
Oh, and you maintained your job after this?
Yes.
That is awesome, because that means that this company was like, they saw the threat and they were willing to take the consequences for securing that account.
So the first thing I did after I did that was then go into that meeting and tell everyone what had happened, what I did. Now, this is before we're getting calls that things are down. I said, so if there's fallout, this is what it is. Then there's fallout immediately.
Oh, of course.
and so we're all freaking out. And I log into the tenant account that I've recently secured and double check everything. And I log into their Microsoft Flows process and I see, the issues. Exactly. And so I just proceeded for the next couple hours to reconfigure all of that and then tell them how this was a bad idea and these need to be on service accounts.
Absolutely.
But that allowed me to keep my job because not only did they not understand that, not everything needs to be ran at the tenant level because there are other types of access, but the fact that everything ran on one account, if that account goes down,
you're taking everything with you. That's actually better than mine. I had a situation once where I was working for a large financial company and we were doing a maintenance and our tier one was sent out to break the mirror so I could do my, upgrade and then we'd, rebuild the mirror. He didn't look to see that the other drive was already pulled. So he actually pulled the active drive out of a live server.
Oh.
So yeah, in terms of instant effect.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining me today. Hope you enjoyed the rest of the show. Hack RedCon Day 2 continuing. Next interview coming up soon. Peace.